Hey everybody, Josh Runquist here for the Heavy Debriefings YouTube channel, talking about this week's edition of Out Today and What I Missed for September 20th, 2024. This week we have 15 brand new albums, 9 out today, 6 I've missed along the way. There's no time to dilly-dally. Let's get into it. First up today, we have the debut album from Blighted Eye with Agony's Bespoke. This Seattle band has been around since 2019, but this is their very first LP, and it is everything that I love about progressive death metal, blackened death metal, all of that combined. You will hear elements of bands like Opeth and Rotting Christ, but the more that you listen, you'll start to hear moments of bands like Swallow the Sun or In Mourning, and you'll also start to hear some other bands and influences as well, if you love that sad, dark style that this form of blackened progressive death metal always brings. If you love emotional music that'll pull on your heartstrings, maybe even make you shed a tear, this is easily one of my favorite albums of 2024. And hey, John the Drummer, I'm reviewing your album. Next up is Eclipse with Megalomanium 2. Has there been a more consistent rock band in the 2010s and the 2020s than Eclipse? If there has, I'd love to hear them because, to me, Eclipse is the most consistent rock band of this era. It's one of Sweden's most prominent rock bands, and they've returned with their second album of the Megalomanium series. It also might be the last part, we'll see what happens. But this album is filled to brim with some of the catchiest rock songs, sing-along choruses, and the occasional left-of-center returns that I've heard all year. It's also just as catchy as the previous Megalomanium album from last year, but it's done just different enough to give it its own flair. It's the kind of album that you can put on, relax, have a big old smile to, and it makes you really want to go see them live. If this isn't your style, I understand why, but for everyone else, this is one of the best hard rock, AOR, melodic metal albums of 2024. They picked up right where they left off, and I can't wait to see what's next. Next up is Glacial Tomb with Lightless Expanse. I had no idea this was an offshoot of Chemist, and with their new lineup, it's even more Chemist than ever before. But don't mistake who's in the band for the style that they play. This is pure death metal, sludge metal, black metal. Hits some of the most extreme stuff that I've heard all year. Whether it's from the slow, sludgy tones that you can get, sometimes you can hear a little bit of Chemist in there, but it's just sludge. But then it goes into death metal assaults, the occasional black metal moments that spice everything up. If you dig the likes of Primitive Man, Gate Creeper, and more of the comprehensible moments of Full of Hell, I think you're gonna feel something really cool here. This is an album for the people who enjoy things on the more extreme side of things, but it's also on both ends of the metal spectrum when it comes to speed. Give it a shot if you're feeling saucy enough. Next up, we have Groza with Nadir. And I've come to notice this week, at least the way that I put everything together, this seems to be a week of some of the best post-black all year. And it's been a very short year for post-black, but Groza is bringing it in strong this week as the first one I'm covering this week. This German band is on their third album, and they constantly just keep improving. They have been able to refine their sound to be able to focus on the darkest evil sides of black metal, the very emotional sides that come with the post of it all, and just adding those left of center moments that really make everything tied together. It goes from great acoustic passages to full-on pummeling assaults. It's a roller coaster ride of emotions. Simply put, this is how I love post-black metal, and I'm so happy Groza's back in its strongest form to come back and make us all feel hollow inside. This is how it's done in some of the best post-black of 2024. Coming up next is an album and band that I'm going to have such a hard time pronunciating because I'm not very good at my German, so I do apologize if I get this wrong. It is Kennenfiver with Die Unkatastrophe. I really love this approach to this band. It is an offshoot that talks about the stories, storytelling, and interviews about the horrors of World War I, and the music more than captures the emotions lyrically, emotionally, everything about the horrors that come from World War I. The music is as chaotic as it is haunting, it's pushed to its fullest extremes, but it has those uneasy, almost melodic moments that gives off such dark feelings, which I truly appreciate. Whether you're a history buff, whether you love something that's very melodic and very extreme, this is more than worthy of your time. My words can only do so much to describe this album. You literally just have to sit back and experience it for yourself. You may enjoy it, you may not, but I think it's more than worth a shot. Next up is Krill with Return of the Heralds. In this sophomore album, I love what Krill has turned into. I absolutely loved their debut album a couple years back, and it's so great to see them back here with one of the most prominent and strongest power metal albums I've heard in 2024, and I mean that. They are set out to put out some of the most solid power metal you could ever hear. Everything you love about the genre is here, from the fast trademarks to the more subdued moments and everything in between. Krill is the kind of band that should be playing prog power, and they deserve to be snatched up before the curtain calls on Prog Power USA. Maybe it'll happen in 2026. But seriously, this is some of the most exceptionally well-made power metal that I've heard this year, and if you just love your standard heavy power metal, no one does it like this. And what else could you possibly want from a band like Krill? Next, we have Mork with Civ. 11 years and 7 albums to this Norwegian band's legacy is no easy feat to accomplish, but Mork has become more creative, engaging, and thought-provoking with every subsequent release. With this latest album, the band continues to experiment with their sound. Of course, they are always going to be layered in that classic old-school black metal sound, but you'll occasionally hear some psychedelic moments, some post moments, some avant-garde, some atmosphere, more extreme stuff, and a vocal delivery that will make any blood nearby curdle. That is some power. Thankfully, the album does have some fantastic production and doesn't fall into the traps of those second-wave black metal bands. If you're listening for the guitar, bass, drums, vocals, you can hear it and it's gonna sound great. If you want to hear a band that takes that early day black metal inspiration but adds their own spices and inspirations, Mork is that band, and you should check them out immediately. This is how you push the boundaries while sounding familiar. Up next is Vision Divine with Blood and Angels' Tears. Some more power metal coming your way, but this time it's from the Italian progressive power metal band known as Vision Divine. With the band's first post-pandemic album, and it's their 9th overall, the band continues to do everything that I love about power metal. It has the blazing fast riffs, it has the over-the-top keys and vocal performances. Everything sounds so crystal clear, and clearly everyone in the band is at the top of their absolute games. If you love bands like Rhapsody and Labyrinth, you need to hear this band because it is that full-on, over-the-top power metal with just the right amount of prog attached to it. And sometimes that is all that you really need. Seriously, give this band a shot if you've never checked them out before. It is more than worth your time. And finally, we have the third album from Wings Denied with Just the Basics. This DC band is back with their most varied and experimental album to date. With their previous work, it has always been in that modern progressive metalcore, and alternative prog sound, but this time around, it feels like every single track is different from the other. Well, not completely. I mean, you're not going to get a grindcore song followed by a power pop song followed by Black and Polka or anything like that. It is all within the world of prog, but they write something in every style of prog, and it just feels so cool to see them do that, and it's so cool to hear that from start to finish. I hope this is the album that launches the band into the stratosphere because they deserve it at this point, and if you want a true showcase of what prog is all about, this is the album for you. And now it's time to catch up on all the music I missed along the way, starting with Agrypni with Erg. And wow, seeing the direction the band has gone through since I first discovered them back in 2013 is absolutely insane. When I think about 11 years ago, how much life has changed in the world, my world, your world, the band's world, the world amongst us, and just seeing what the band has turned into, they are one of, if not the best post-black band in the world. Their blend of post-black, experimental, prog, and other elements just write some of the most emotionally driven, progressive post-black that you're gonna hear in this style. It's some of the best riffs ever written for this genre. I've always loved what this band does, and just seeing how the band has progressed when I think about all those years back, 11 years ago, and just seeing what they're doing now, it shows that this band is here to stay, and they will stand the test of time. If you don't believe me, just check it out for yourself. What a phenomenal album in the black metal world. Next up, I got Deadscape with State of Decline. And I must thank the Harsh Vocals podcast for bringing this to my attention. Christian, Justin, thank you so very much. This has come to my attention as I feel it's one of the best melodeath albums of the year. And I don't say that lightly, as 2024 has been such an incredible year for melodeath. While I know the clean vocals won't be for everybody, they are for me. And this Bulgarian melodeath band's sophomore album takes everything that I love about the melodeath field and makes it a bit more ethereal, makes it hit just a bit bit harder with dynamics, and it has this overall sense of existentialism that I can very much relate to. 2024 for Melodeath has been amazing, whether you're looking for more of the extreme side of Melodeath or the more commercialized side of Melodeath. This hits closer to the former, while still having some of the latter hit you very, very hard. Give it a spin or two, and you'll see what I mean. This is some killer stuff. Next up is Oceans of Slumber with Where Gods Fear to Speak. And this is a textbook definition of a polarizing album. What's my take on it? Well, I'd say that if you heard just the singles off this album, it is very reminiscent of the last couple albums that the band has done. If you listen to the album tracks off of this album, it is closer to the early day stuff that they used to do, that extreme progressive doom metal. And then they also mix it in with those singles that have that alternative metal, gothic metal, and the occasional progressive doom in there thrown in as well. Cammy is putting out some of her best vocal deliveries to date. Dauber is one of the best songwriters in the world of metal. This is not an album you can hear once and say that it's their best or worst work to date. You have to listen to it a few times to really know, because I feel like some of this will click for you the more you hear it, but I would say above it all, this is their most dynamic, thought-provoking album to date. And for Oceans of Slumber, I expect nothing else. Next up is the legendary band known as Satan with Songs in Crimson. The band has been around for 41 years, but this is only their 7th album. Only the first 2 albums were released in the 80s and everything else has come out since the 2010s onwards. All that said, this particular album feels like it was recorded in the depths of 1984 and just unearthed this year for all of us to consume. From the production, the songwriting style, that overall sense of that classic heavy metal and new wave of British heavy metal sound that has hooked us for almost 50 years now is layered in this album. It's so catchy, hooky, everyone gets to shine. For almost 44 and a half minutes, this is pure 80s heavy metal, classic metal, thrash, and haunting tones. If that's not for you, cool. For everyone else, this might be the album that you need in 2024. Kick back, relax, and enjoy. Up next is Tris Nodden with Black Swan. This is a new discovery for me, but I am floored. This is a nostalgia throwback for anyone of my particular era, of that 2000s Melodeath, progressive and alternative gothic metal sounds. Like, if you like bands like In Flames, Lacuna Coil, Deadlock, and yeah, I'll even dare say that First In This Moment album, you're gonna find something to really appreciate here. Every song is super, super catchy, and it feels like that alternative, gothic, progressive, melodic death metal that we all grew up on, especially in that middle era of In Flames. If FM radio was better, I could easily see this being on the radio, but you know they're not willing to take chances. Give this one a shot if you want that kind of throwback, but done in 2024. It's more than just a nostalgic feel, it really feels authentic. Just give it a shot and see for yourself. And things with Vesen with Advisend. This is the first album I would ever dare call to be a melodic post-black metal album. This one-man Austrian post-black band is everything that I look for in the style, but it's done with such emotional riffs. It's not a cheery album in any sense of the word. This gives off emotional trauma and feels like what it deals with mental health issues, especially anxiety in particular. And as someone who deals with all of these feelings all the time, it can drain you, it can make you cry, it can make you feel things that you maybe don't want to feel, but it's one of the most cathartic feelings I've felt in an album all year. It also has a great production style that is very, very clear, but just raw enough to really drive home those feelings, and a display of musicianship that adds to it all, and you have one of the most sensational post-black metal albums of the ages. If you dig the style, you owe it to yourself to give this one a shot. This album proves that post-black is a genre worth exploring time and time again. And there you go, folks, another 15 albums down for Out Today and What I Missed for September 20th, 2024. What do you think? Did I pick out some good albums this week? Did I pick out some bad ones? Did I leave out some? I know I left out one in particular and I'm very, very sad about it, but you will be hearing it next week, guaranteed. But yeah, let me know all of that stuff in the comments down below. And of course, like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. We are just about at that 1,200 subscriber range, so please go ahead and subscribe. That'll help me out tremendously. And make sure to come back next week when we cover Out Today and What I Missed for September 27th, 2024, the final Friday of September, right before we get into the spookiest month of the year, October 2024. So until next week, for the Heavy Debriefings YouTube channel, this is Josh Runquist saying, embrace the skullet.